This is Garis, Masculist, MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays on the themes of masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 657, part 2, entitled How Female University Students Will React to the Manosphere Claim that 80% of them are fluffy crappers. Carrying straight on. I'm a masculist. I refuse to be subject to a 1 chance in 4 of being butchered in a hated, fluffy feminist dominated divorce court system. So when I look at a potential girlfriend, I look at her with a very cold, objective, masculist eye, asking myself if that woman is a true FIP, who has moral expectations of being a FIP, who feels morally obliged to be a FIP, and would be ashamed to be a fluffy, expecting to live off a man's money and labour for decades of his life. The Manosphere, that is, men who talk about men's lib issues on the internet, estimate that about 80% of young women at the critical age of 16 choose to become fluffies by choosing to study fluffy crap majors that will make them fluffies as adults, and hence expect to parasite off some man for decades of his life, and with 1 in 4 fathers to divorce rape him, destroying his life, thus making her hated by masculists for being a man-slaving, divorce-raping vermin. Masculists label women who study fluffy crap majors fluffy crappers, and see them as the enemy, to be punished, severely punished, by being forced to rot on the shelf, dying slow, miserable deaths, utterly rejected by men, masculisted men, thus putting powerful moral pressure on women to FIP up, or be effectively exterminated by men, masculisted men, who will have nothing to do with them, not even pumping and dumping them, totally rejecting them, both socially and sexually. You study fluffy crap majors that will make you poor as an adult, unable to earn decent money because you have not bothered to acquire a real skill. You have chosen to study fluffy crap majors that the economy does not value, hence does not pay good money for. So inevitably you will be poor as an adult if you live off your own meagre money. So you'll look around in typical female hypergamous style for some gullible, ignorant, in brackets, of masculist, of manospherian ideas, close brackets, man-slavable man to work for you for decades of your life, thus exposing him to a 1 in 4 chance of being divorced, raped by you if you divorce him as a fluffy in a hated, fluffy feminist dominated divorce court. So, you can see why I don't want to get any closer towards you. You are a very bad future prospect, since you are a fluffy crapper, and hence a future major oppressor of a man, the type of woman that the masculists utterly reject and despise. I feel pity for you, since your status of being a fluffy crapper is going to follow you wherever you go, and as the supply of gullible, man-slavable men dries up, as masculists and MGTOW, that's men going their own way, ideas spread, you will not be able to persuade some man to have kids with you. You'll probably be able to get some guy to sex you, since you're quite pretty, but an increasingly smaller number of men, as masculist and MGTOW ideas spread, will be prepared to marry you and work for you for decades of his life. End quote. F, that's female. Quote.
That's just about the worst thing that any man has ever said to me. I feel utterly crushed and depressed, since you are telling me that my fate is to be manless, loveless, and babyless. That is an awful life for a woman. It makes me feel totally depressed.
End quote. M. Quote. Masculists are abolitionists who have a hatred of manslaving, divorce-raping women. We want the gender laws changed so that they are made men fair. We masculists are political animals who are out to fundamentally change society by creating a FIP society, by causing the fipping of women. This little dialogue we have just had will play out in millions of cases across the world, forcing millions of young women to pour into STEM and the professions so that they are not seen by masculisted men as future manslavers and divorce rapists. The pain you will suffer in the coming years times millions, as millions of other women go through similar experiences, will cause young women to fib up, to become bi-conscious, in brackets, that is, have both their feminist and their masculist consciousnesses raised, learning that gender oppression is very much a two-way street, and in fact that women oppress men much worse than vice versa, with women's big three ways of oppressing men, that is, their manslavery, their divorce rape, their forced fathering, brackets, e.g. paternity fraud, women having the MARA, maternity rejection right, but men not having the PARA, paternity rejection right, seeing men as existing on this earth to pay for women to have babies. Masculists rebel against that traditional role for men by pushing for the creation of a FIP society. We masculists want the establishment of GECs, Gender Equality Committees, in the parliaments that consist half of female feminist politicians and half of male masculist politicians, so that the gender issues of both sexes are dealt with equally. The masculist politicians in these GECs will push for the fipping of women, for fundamental reform of the divorce courts, basing them on the principle of female financial independence, since most women will be FIPs, who can pay their own way, and not be Fluffies, who live off the labour and money of a man. The PARA will be legislated, and so too the OPTAB, OPTAB, that's obligatory paternity testing at birth for all births, to block paternity fraud, which masculists are appalled by. Paternity fraudster women will be put behind bars for 15 years for committing a greater gender crime against men than the gender crime of rape by men against women, which typically gets a man 10 years in jail. In a few years, nearly all female university students will have heard of the masculist concept of the Fluffie, and the term, will strike fear into their hearts. The fear is that if they get the reputation in their social circle of being a Fluffie, of being a fluffy crapper, that is, a future manslaver and divorce rapist, then that will be the kiss of death for her in her social circle, since no man will go near her, because young men will refuse to be manslaved and divorce raped by a hated, vile, immoral, bloody Fluffy who is left to rot on the shelf. Those women who are currently monoconscious feminists, who feel they have the moral right to be bitchy towards men for the ways that men oppress women, that monoconscious feminism teaches them, will soon suffer in their millions as very angry, hateful, masculisted men lash into them for their monoconscious hypocrisy, their ignorance of masculist ideas, for their sexist, hypocritical bigotry. Masculists have no patience with monoconscious feminists who lash out at men, when women commit far greater gender crimes against men, that is, the big three mentioned above. Bi-conscious masculists bite the fucking heads off such monoconscious feminists, chewing them out with verbally vicious, hateful, masculist harangues, utterly rejecting such women, forcing them to die slow, miserable deaths, rotting on the shelf. As this kind of mass rejection involving millions of young monoconscious feminist university students becomes the norm, then monoconscious feminism will die out, and nearly all women on campus in time will be studying career competent majors, who reject fluffy crappers the way masculisted men do. So we can expect women to pour into STEM and the professions so that they do not manslave and divorce rape men. In time, there will be almost as many women who are female masculists as there are male masculists, which will then translate into the men fairing of the gender laws, the establishment of the GEX, and the general liberation of several billion men across the planet, a major historical shift that future historians will write books about. End quote. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. Brackets. Click on the Masculist tab for 650 plus masculist essays and their videos. Close brackets. See also a London Real interview on masculism at AI will kill 1 billion people, do we create our exterminators? Professor Hugo de Garis, London Real, in brackets. See the last half hour of this 2-hour interview for the masculist segment. These flyers are available in text and video formats on Minds, BitChute, Odyssey, MGTOW.tv and X. Ciao.